Welcome to Furniture Industry News. Today is Friday, July 24th, 2026, and thanks for spending a few minutes with us. The tariff that our industry has been circling on the calendar for 2 months finally landed this morning. At 12:01 a.m., a new set of duties on 60 countries took effect, right as the temporary tariff that came before it expired. The headline number sounds almost manageable, 10 to 12.5%. But the real cost on any given product is a lot more complicated than that. We will spend some time there because it matters to nearly everyone listening. Then we will look at a new study that puts a dollar figure on what last year's trade war cost households in the Midwest, why consumers keep breaking spending records even as their savings run dry, what shoppers really think about the store experience, and how online reviews are quietly deciding whether people walk through your door at all. Let's get into it. So, the tariff. This is the story we've been tracking since early June, and this morning it became real. The new duties fall under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, and they apply to imports from 60 economies. The administration says those countries failed to block goods made with forced labor. According to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, these tariffs touch about 99.4% of all imports coming into the United States. That is nearly everything. The rates range from 10% to 12.5%, and here is the first thing to understand. The rate is not the same for every country. Canada, Mexico, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, and the United Kingdom generally fall in the 10% group. China, Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines generally face 12.5%. The European Union and Taiwan are capped at a combined 10%, and Japan, South Korea, and Switzerland are capped at a combined 12.5%.
Now here is the part that really matters for your call sheet. This new duty does not replace your existing tariffs. For most products, it stacks on top of them. So picture a furniture item coming from China. It could carry its normal tariff, plus an older China Section 301 duty that has been in place for years, plus this new 12.5% duty and any anti-dumping or countervailing charges that already apply. Suddenly, the headline rate is only one piece of a much bigger bill. So do not take 12.5%, spread it across your entire product line, and call it a day. The real rate is specific to each product, each country of origin, and each duty already attached to it. There is some good news, though. Products already covered by Section 232 wood products tariffs are carved out and exempt from this new duty. So certain upholstered wooden furniture that already pays a Section 232 rate will not get hit a second time. If a meaningful share of your assortment falls into that category, this action may change less for you than the headline suggests. Let me stay on tariffs for a moment, because there are 3 practical checks every importer should be running right now. First, check the stacking. Understand every duty already attached to a product before you estimate the new one. Second, check for the Section 232 exemption on your wood products, because that carve-out could save you real money. And third, understand that there is effectively no grace period. There is a very narrow exemption, and it only covers goods already loaded and in transit before 12:01 this morning and entered for consumption before 12:01 a.m. Eastern on July 28th. And be careful, because the Home Furnishings Association warns that simply pre-filing an entry does not guarantee you qualify. Customs sets the entry date based on when the goods actually arrive. So the action items are clear. Call your customs broker today about anything pending or in transit. Confirm the tariff classification and country of origin for each product, not just each product line. Keep complete shipping and entry paperwork, and go back and look at your pricing and inventory with the new exposure in mind. As a planning estimate, the HFA suggests using 12.5% for landed costs, while remembering that many products may qualify for the lower 10% rate or for an exemption entirely.
And one more note on sourcing strategy. As we discussed earlier this week, there is a separate 50% tariff on many Canadian goods still scheduled for August 19th. So North America is not the clean workaround it looked like it might be a month ago. Country of origin by itself is no longer enough to tell you what a product will cost. Now, let's talk about who actually pays for all this, because a new study puts a real number on it. Research from the Midwest Economic Policy Institute and the Project for Middle Class Renewal at the University of Illinois found that last year's trade war cost the average household in 6 Midwest states about $2,000 in 2025, and the region was hit harder than the country as a whole. The study estimates the tariffs shrank the regional economy by about $18 billion and cost the Midwest nearly 42,000 manufacturing jobs. It also notes that tariff levels last year were the highest since the 1930s, and that lower-income households felt it most. One of the study's co-authors, Frank Manzo, explained that the Midwest carries outsized exposure because consumer spending drives more than 2/3 of its economic activity, and the region produces about 1/5 of the nation's manufacturing and farm output. Here is why that matters for us. This is the demand side of the tariff story. When a study says households in a major furniture buying region paid $2,000 more, it is describing shoppers with less room in the budget for a big-ticket purchase like a sofa or a bedroom set. So this becomes a useful frame for how you talk about financing and value. Your customers are absorbing real cost increases all around them, and furniture is competing for a wallet that has already gotten tighter. Which brings us to a puzzle, because even with all that pressure, consumers keep spending, and in many cases they are setting records. The National Retail Federation says per-person spending hit records across nearly every seasonal event this year. Valentine's Day was up almost 6%, Mother's Day was up close to 10%, Father's Day was up nearly 14%. And for the back-to-college season, the NRF projects that spending on dorm and apartment furnishings alone will jump about 9.5%, with total back-to-college spending expected to pass $100 billion for the first time ever.
But underneath those record numbers, the foundation is getting shaky. The NRF says the personal savings rate fell to just 3% of income in April. The long-term average is more than 8%. At the same time, credit card delinquency rates are running near 13%. The NRF's chief economist, Mark Matthews, pointed out that the bottom 80% of households have seen flat to negative growth in their liquid savings over the past 3 years, and that inflation has started to eat into wages. Now, he still expects consumers to stay resilient through the rest of the year. He called it a challenging environment for retailers, but added there is no reason to expect any dramatic drop in the second half. So what do you do with that? 2 things. First, that back-to-college number is a real near-term opportunity. A projected 9.5% rise in dorm and apartment furnishings is a clear window for retailers who have the right entry price assortment and can deliver on time. Second, remember that this record spending is increasingly funded by credit, not cash. With savings near record lows and delinquencies climbing, this is the moment to lean hard into financing, warranties, and a strong value story, because the shopper walking through your door may be stretched a lot thinner than those record headlines suggest. Let's shift to the store experience itself, because there is some encouraging data here. A new report from Happy or Not, built on more than 18 million in-store feedback responses, gave retail a global satisfaction score of 92.4 between April and June. North America came in even higher, at 93.4%. So overall, people are happy in stores. But there is one clear soft spot, and it is a familiar one. Price perception was the weakest area at 83.7%. Compare that with service execution, which led at almost 98%, and store environment at more than 94%. There was also a rhythm to satisfaction. It was strongest early in the week, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, weakest on Sundays, and it tended to slip as the day went on, with afternoons and evenings the softest. The report tied that to leaner teams and rising labor costs, where the gap between how busy you are and how many people you have on the floor shows up most at the busiest moments.
As a staffing and pricing playbook, if satisfaction sags on weekend afternoons and evenings, that is exactly when you want your most experienced people and a manager on the floor. And that price perception finding is worth sitting with, because with tariffs pushing costs up, price is already where shoppers feel the most friction. The good news is that service and environment are your 2 strongest pillars, and that gives you room to justify a price rather than apologize for it, as long as the value story is clear on the floor. Finally, let's talk about something that happens before a customer ever walks in: online reviews. A new study from Local Impact found that 88% of U.S. consumers have decided not to buy from a local business after reading negative reviews. 67% check reviews often or every single time before a purchase. And star ratings are doing a first round of screening before anyone reads a word. More than 78% of people say they will not even consider a business rated below 4 stars, and about 27% only buy from businesses rated 4.5 stars or higher. When it comes to where people look, Google is dominant, cited by 86%, far ahead of Yelp, Facebook, and the rest. Speed of response matters too. 70% of consumers expect a reply to a negative review within 1 to 3 days, and 78% said a thoughtful response actually made them more likely to trust the business. One more wrinkle. A separate Local Impact survey found that 72% of local business owners had received a fake review in the past year, and about 3/4 said those fake reviews hurt their business. For a furniture store, where a sale often takes multiple visits and a big ticket, your review profile is doing sales work before the customer arrives. So the plays here are low cost and high return.
Actively ask your satisfied buyers for reviews so you can push your star average past those 4 and 4.5 star thresholds that gate whether people even consider you. Focus on Google first, since that is where most people are looking. Build a habit of responding to negative reviews within a couple of days, because the response itself builds trust. And since fake reviews are a growing problem, get familiar with how each platform lets you dispute them. Protecting your rating is really about protecting your traffic.
That is your briefing this week. If you find these updates useful, please subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Thanks for listening.